Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Kyle Tarbett, President and CEO of the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our third session of the Virtual Business Summit. We're super excited to be bringing content to you this year, and this week specifically surrounding workforce. We've already had sessions talking about student workers and interns. Yesterday, we learned a little bit about blue zones, and today we're going to be talking about a very critical issue for us here in Walla Walla. Childcare is something that the Chamber has been working on for quite a while. It's been a concern for people in our community for many years, and then COVID has just really emphasized how critical this piece of infrastructure is to our workforce. And so we have entered a partnership with some of our local partners, as well as Best Place for Working Parents, a very innovative group. And we're excited to have a little bit of content for you today surrounding this issue. So first of all, we would like to thank our sponsors. We have the Blue Zones Project, the Port of Walla Walla, the City of College Place, and the City of Walla Walla, all who have helped us to bring this content to you free of cost. Again, this webinar is going to be available on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and on our website, so that you can find that in the future as often as you need to refer back. Today, as we're going through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or use the Q&A feature. If you are on our Facebook page, post your questions in the comments, and I'll be watching and monitoring that and making sure that your questions get answered today. So I would like to introduce Sadie Funk. We're super excited to have you with us today, Sadie. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Kyle? Excited to be here.
Doing great. We're super excited to hear a little bit more about this issue of childcare and some things that our employers can do.
Wonderful. Great. Well, excited to be with you guys in Walla Walla. As you mentioned, this issue of childcare and what it takes to support working families has only become more urgent as a result of COVID and changing workplaces. So very excited to share with you a little bit more about the Best Place for Working Parents, which is really a network of growing businesses and regions who are proving that family friendly is business friendly, and thinking about how childcare is a part of that solution and really grounded down in research and evidence-based strategies. So before I get in, let me share my presentation screen with you guys. Okay. Can we see this? Let me go to, go. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the Best Place for Working Parents. So before I get into what it is, I'm going to talk briefly, really briefly, about why the Best Place for Working Parents. So when school resumed fall of 2020, 80% of the 1.1 million people who exited the workforce were women. And that December, 100% of the 400,000 that had left were also women. Then since COVID began, 2.3 million women have left the workforce, leaving our labor force at a collective 33-year low for women in the workforce. And we know that that's half our population. It's a critical part of our economy, what makes the economy strong. And so this is a really critical issue at this juncture in time. And then lastly, I'll just share that employers lose $13 billion annually in productivity costs due to childcare challenges faced by their workforce. So that is to say, this isn't just an issue for women. This isn't just an issue for parents. This is really a national issue of our workforce, of our economy, that is intricately tied in with childcare as well. And part of that is that we know these are some pre-COVID stats, which is to say that the new norm of who we are as a collective society and what our workforce looks like has changed and continues to change. So only 27% of families have fathers as the sole breadwinner, and 72% of all women and 93% of all men with children under 18 were in the labor force in 2019. Also, 60% of non-working parents say that childcare really is the top reason they're not participating in the workforce. We know that's especially true for those highly skilled middle middle wage technical earners. Additionally, 73% of highly credentialed women who have left the workforce say they would have stayed if they had access to flexibility in the workforce. And then lastly, we know that millennials, as they're changing everything about workplaces, they have something to say on this as well. 83% of millennials said they would leave one job for another with stronger family-friendly policies. And it's extremely expensive to replace those employees who are wanting to go from one place to another. So all of this is kind of compiling together, being further compounded by COVID, to say that it really is time to build a new workforce paradigm. And that's really where the best place for working parents comes in. The best place for working parents, as I said, we are a community of business leaders proving that family friendly is business friendly. And it really starts with a 3-minute online business self-assessment. So it's really made for our C-suites to be able to go on, easily take a 3-minute assessment that gives them results in real time about how they stack up against other businesses of like size and industry, according to their policies that support working families. So it's really outlining against 10 policies, and you'll be able to see how you fare on each one of those policies and whether or not you qualify as a designated best place for working parents business. If you do, then you will be awarded a badge. You're able to use that badge and really let your employees know how you're stepping forward. You're also welcomed into a network of other businesses who are really stepping forward and proving that business friendly is family friendly. A brief history of how we got here is that for many years in Fort Worth, Texas, we were bringing together a wide cross-sector group of professionals from our local corporate community, our philanthropic community, our healthcare community, education, all to say, how do we best support the next generation of workers by focusing in on early childhood today? And through conversations and kind of continued work, our business community really came out strongly saying, we absolutely understand how important this is, but we need to figure out how to support our workers of today. We care about the workforce of tomorrow, but we're more concerned with the workforce of today. And that really prompted us and to shift and really focus on what can businesses be doing today to better support working families. And so with that, we brought together over 100 businesses, large and small, some from Fortune 500, other kind of mom and pop coffee shops, to say, what are you doing today with regards to working parents, supporting your working parents? What's working really well, what's innovative, and what's tough? Where are you stuck? And we took those conversations and really linked them with what the research tells us about policies that support working parents and businesses bottom line, and came up with these top 10 policies that are proven in the research to do both. And so you can see these should look familiar. Some may be new, but the first are kind of in the core benefits category. We have company paid healthcare coverage, paid time off, and access to maternity and paternity leave. Then when we think about family resources, how are we supporting those working families? We have on-site childcare assistance. So that would be, are you offering any sort of a dependent care FSA? Are you offering vouchers? Do you offer any options to assist your employees in locating childcare? And then also backup childcare. Do you have any plans in place to help those families when plans fall through unexpectedly? Thinking about flexibility, flexible hours, what are the opportunities for families to be able to prioritize work, but also be able to show up for their son's soccer game or walk their child in on their first day of kindergarten? Those special moments, how do we allow space for parents to be present and then still be, 100% at work? Remote work, working from home, that has, very quickly flung into our lives. And then nursing benefits. When we think about company culture, what not only does your company offer nursing benefits, but what is the culture around that? Best place designation. Are people taking their PTO? What does that look like? Do people feel comfortable to go on vacation? Does the boss go on vacation? All of those things are taken into consideration. So this is an example of the self-assessment results and how it would look for you. So if you were to, and this is, I will say thank you to the Walla Walla Chamber of Commerce and Community Foundation. This is all free for you all as Walla Walla businesses to be able to take. Thank you to the participation, like I said, of the Chamber of Commerce. So I want to first and foremost thank them, but you can go online and I can show you later. But this is the SNAP card that you would receive. So let's say I'm ABC, I can see compared to those with that are of a similar size, they have about 50, they're offering about 50% of these benefits. Those in my industry may be offering about 50% as well, and we're offering 60%. So I can say I'm doing better. Of course, you may also see that, maybe you're doing worse. And I'll pause right here because I think one thing we heard loud and clear during our roundtables was that, one size does not fit all, and that there was really an understanding that, what a employer of 2,000 employees may be able to offer is very different than an employer of 20 employees, as well as what those who may be in the manufacturing industry can look different than those that are maybe in consulting services. And so really the assessment was designed to be flexible to the various factors that impact companies' ability to really be family friendly, and helps those businesses think about, where can we lean in when we can't do it 100%. And so the assessment and the designation is actually tiered by your size of business. So looking ahead, I'm going to check the chat real quick. I do see we have a chat. Oh, great. Kyle posted in the link to the assessment in the chat box. So if you want, you're more than welcome to go through, select that you're with Walla Walla, and we'd love to welcome you into the network of Walla Walla businesses.
Yeah, Sadie, I do have one question that we get a lot. Just from being familiar with the makeup of the employers that we have here in Walla Walla, we have a lot of great nonprofits, and we have a lot of government agencies or municipalities that are large employers here. So are they eligible? Do they have to be a for-profit business, or can they be any type of employer to take the assessment and participate?
Yes, great question, Kyle. They are absolutely eligible, and we would love to see them among those designated as a best place for working business. This assessment, in addition to being, co-developed with our business community here in Fort Worth, was also developed with the city of Fort Worth. And as a result of participation in this process, the city of Fort Worth moved forward to pass paid parental leave for all city employees. Another example is in Austin, Texas, what we would say is part of Travis County. As a result of participating in the best place for working parents, they too have gone forward and decided to offer parental leave, and are actually now in consultation with the city of Fort Worth to really work through some of the intricacies about how, what are some of the financial considerations and how they were able to build that out through their HR policies. So we have lots of great case studies that really show how, while it's a quick 3-minute assessment, it really is changing workplace paradigms. Here's just a further example of the self-assessment and result snapshot. So you'd be able to see your core benefits and how they stack up, and it'll go through each of those 10 policies that we outlined earlier and show you how you fare compared to others in your space. So we currently, to date, we have 600 businesses designated across the United States. We're in 6 states. We just recently signed on Alabama. So we're in Alabama, Iowa, Maine, Oregon, Texas, and Washington. In Texas, we are strongly in 6 regions, and then we're in 980 cities from coast to coast. So this is a really strong, growing network of businesses who are committing to coming together and continuing to add to the robust base of research that really tells us that family friendly is business friendly. Additionally, we have engaged in a 3-year research study with SMU's Center on Research and Evaluation, which is continuing to build the research base about how family-friendly practices really can better support businesses to attract and retain top talent. And so that is something also, if you are interested as a business, thank you to the participation of Walla Walla. This is, if you are interested to be a part of that study, you're also invited to join that study. And then we're hosting our first annual national summit coming up in Fort Worth, May 4th through 6th. just around the corner, but I'll share a little bit about that at the end in case some of you are interested to attend. So I think that kind of leads to the next piece, which is right now, given where we are, we're kind of teetering towards a post-pandemic paradigm, even though we're still wrestling with elements of the pandemic. But what we know for sure is that many changes happened during the pandemic in the workplace norms, and some of those are here to stay, and some of those aren't. In a conversation last year with Robert Kaplan, who was the CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas at the time, he really highlighted that GDP growth is made up of growth in the workforce plus growth in productivity. And one of the keys to recovering from the pandemic is to encourage people to get back to work in a widespread way. And he really highlights that women are key to getting the workforce back to work. And that key to women re-entering the workforce is childcare. Additionally, a study of 825 respondents mid-pandemic shared that 80% of that study, 80% of respondents said they would leave their current job for another that offered family-friendly benefits. Of those thinking about childcare, getting back to work, they recognized 78% of those who were currently unemployed needed childcare to return to work. And 84% of working parents said full-time care 5 days a week was critical to them staying in the workforce. Additionally, when surveyed, they highlighted the top 5 policies that were most important for them in today's workplace environment. That included flexibility, paid time off, childcare assistance, and remote work options. So the good news is that all 5 of those policies are part of the best place for working parents, and that not all of them cost companies money. So we know that childcare assistance can go anywhere from, helping local parents tap into local resources with their childcare resource and referral at no cost, all the way towards putting on-site childcare, which may be on the more expensive end. But then there's opportunities for flexibility and paid time off that can have low or no cost components. So with that, I wanted to just pause and talk about some easy ways that employers can start to think. So the first thing is, in thinking about how we want to be family friendly and how we create that working environment, the first place we always encourage people to start is by surveying your team, surveying your employees. Ask them, hey, what's working for you? What's working for you in coming to work and being able to show up when you go home to be a parent, or when you go home to maybe take care of a parent? We know we have a lot of working families who are sandwiched in between generations. What do you like about our current set of policies? What helps you feel supported? And then what's hard? What's still difficult that you need us to continue tackling? Some easy ideas that others have really implemented and touted to have a good return on investment is, taking the step to make your nursing spaces enjoyable. Make them, some people have gone the distance to spend $120 to turn it into a Zen room, with a fridge and maybe the ability to listen to music, plug in your laptop. So how do we continue to make them feel comfortable? Others we've heard of really simple policies such as, when it's come August or September and it's time to go back to school, just saying, okay, everybody come in at 10 today, right? We know that lots of people are in the hustle of getting their children back to school. You want to be present. So everybody come in at 10 a.m., take your time, take your child to school. Maybe some of you, it's their first day for kindergarten, you got to wipe a tear or something, but make space and time for that. Or graduation weekend, if your child is graduating, they're going to have a lot on their plate, give them an early Friday or maybe the whole Friday off. So things that are kind of lower impact. Another opportunity is the dependent care FSA. So many people are familiar with health savings accounts and FSAs, which really are opportunities for pre-tax investment in healthcare spending. There's also the dependent care FSA, which is separate from those two and allows employees to put aside up to $5,000 tax-free that they can then spend toward care of their child. Also, then, of course, if employees are pulling that out, that also has a return for the business as well. So those are just a few policies that we know are working really well. I'm going to pause really quickly and move from the slideshow to share briefly on the summit. If you give me just 1 second.
Now, Sadie, while you're pulling that up, let me put in a plug on the FSAs. If you have any questions about that, if you're working for maybe a large employer, you can check with your HR department. If not, if you're a smaller business, you might need to check in with whoever does your retirement accounts and see if they have some more information to see if you can offer this for your employees, or you can take some info to your employer and say, hey, this is something that would really be good for us. Can we investigate that a little further? So check in with your financial advisor if you have questions about that, or with your HR department. And that would be a good way to explore options within FSA. Flexible spending account is what you're looking for there.
Great, thank you. And then, as I mentioned, it is coming up in just a few short weeks, but as a Walla Walla business, it is completely free for you to attend the summit if you like. And so it is taking place in Fort Worth, where the assessment was born. And so briefly, just to highlight some of the speakers, we have the Chief People Officer from American Airlines, Senior Director of Global Benefits from Fossil, Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer from Yum Brands Pizza Hut. We have Bell Helicopter. We have Hilty, the U.S. Head of HR for JP Morgan Chase. Among many, all of them are coming together. The VP of Rewards and People Operations at Match. All of them who are coming together really to tout how important these 10 policies are to their businesses and what helps them to attract and retain top talent. So each of those people will share briefly about one of the policies we've talked through briefly today, and then have an open roundtable Q&A with the audience. And then the second day is, sometimes it's a little sensitive to the touch. The second day, we'll be highlighting exactly what we were just talking about, but really breaking down the child care tax credit, bringing in a legal team and tax team who's able to talk through dependent care FSAs, why they're a no-brainer for business, how to start putting that into place, and then also bringing in some of our innovative leaders in the space of subsidizing childcare and how businesses can start to think about that, as well as what are some of the tax benefits that businesses can be taking care of. So like I mentioned, this is an opportunity to attend at no cost. The summit, if you're interested, once again, thank you to the Walla Walla Chamber of Commerce, who has sponsored Walla Walla's participation in the summit. So Kyle, right now, I'm happy to go into further case studies of what businesses have done, but I'm also happy to pause and take a few questions from the audience if there are any.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of them, we had somebody ask about you. I don't know if you were reading them off of a list, but some of those survey questions, you talked about surveying your team. Do you have kind of a survey, a draft or a template that someone can utilize so that they're asking the right questions? Is that already written up, or do you have some guidelines set for people?
Absolutely. So through our network, we have many partners who have done the work of building out those robust HR manuals that really guide people with a step-by-step through how to create family-friendly policies. One of those is our partners in Austin, and they have some great resources I can send to you, Kyle, afterwards to share with the attendee.
Okay. And then the other question that we have is, do you have examples of family-friendly policies from businesses who have already gone through this process? And I think what they're looking for there is kind of some model language or some policy language that is in a somebody's employee handbook that they can just use as a starting point for their success. And that might be where we're going next.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So I guess first I'll step back and say that, the assessment itself is really meant to spark that reflection and conversation among leadership of what are we doing internally. And that's partly about reaching back out to your team to say, how are you handling your ability to drop your kids off at school? Are you able to find the care you need? I think in thinking about what are some of the steps businesses have taken. There's an engineering and manufacturing firm who had been a part of our initial roundtable. They went ahead and took the assessment, kind of saw where they lined up. They did notice that, they didn't have any of the wins when it comes to childcare, and they were about ready to do a remodel of their campus to put in a very nice conference room that they would use for employee events and outside visitors. And they paused, surveyed their employees about what they wanted and what they were struggling with, and found that employees didn't want a new conference room. What they wanted was assistance with childcare. And so they reached back out to us. We were able to connect them with, childcare licensing and others, and they were able to put on-site childcare as a result of taking the assessment, checking in with their employees, and then putting those pieces in place. And recently we had a chance to catch back up with them, and they were talking about, how they really couldn't have foreseen what a safety net the child care center was going to become for their business. So they are one of those businesses who, has 3 shifts going. Lots of times they have couples who both work for the company, and maybe both parents work. So someone may be working a day shift while the other parent is working a night shift. They recently had an incident where something happened, and the parent who was working the night shift needed to do some additional training that had to happen during the day shift, which meant that the other day shift parent needed to stay home to watch the kids, and they were going to have to quit. So they went to HR to say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to turn in my notice. And HR was able to respond, actually, what if we just provide you a month of childcare? Would that, help you be able to stay employed? And of course, a month of childcare was so much less than having to replace that employee, having to, go out, find a new employee, search, bring that on. So that's just one example of how it's been put in place. I think when we think about language, about how people are doing it, that's going to be very dependent by policy. But some examples, I think when we look at parental leave, that really people are starting to go deeper on, is to think about, is the parental leave, not just being made available to new moms and dads, but making sure they're taking into consideration, families that are adopting, families that are providing foster care. So thinking about kind of the wider range of families that we have, not just those who may be, needing to physically recover from the birth of a child, but those who really are looking for that bonding time with a child. I know in talking with James Fripp, who is the Chief Equity Officer at Pizza Hut Yum, and what he said is, they have really gotten to the point as a business where they view childcare as mental health, because it's so critical for their employees to know that their children are safe, that their children are in good care. And so really providing support for their employees to connect with good childcare, to be able to afford good childcare, has become essential for their employees' mental health and ultimately how they show up at work. Is that helpful?
Yeah, absolutely, that's helpful. And as you were talking, I realized too, maybe taking someone else's policy and trying to implement that into your own organization could present some problems if you're a lot larger or a lot smaller, but there could also be different state regulations that you might need to work around as well. So here in Walla Walla, our valley straddles the line between 2 states, and things can be different between Oregon and Washington. So before you implement some policies, that's something that I would recommend checking into. What are the legal requirements? So labor and industries here in Washington would be a good place to check in with before you put in all this work and try to adopt policy and then realize it doesn't meet the legal requirements of the state. So before you go implementing something, it should be well thought out and planned out and really customized to fit the needs of your employees and your business.
I will just add, I think one of the wonderful things about Best Place for Working Parents and about having local leadership like Kyle and the chamber who we have is that, they're really able to act as a connector. So when you do have local businesses that say, hey, we want to do that, but we don't even know where to begin. I don't want to speak out of turn, Kyle, but I'm sure you guys are able to look at the assessments and say like, oh, Joe with business XYZ is doing this. They just put it in place. Why don't I connect you why don't y'all come to the chamber? We can sit down, have a conversation, and see what that might look like for you. To your point, it's not going to necessarily be a cut and copy or a cut and paste, but there's certainly lessons to be learned and shared. And that was especially true during the pandemic. I referenced the survey that we did with working parents. We also, prior to that one, did one with businesses to say, how are you responding to COVID and supporting your workforce? And what we heard back was, this was so helpful because I didn't know other companies were offering stipends. So particularly in the financial industry, many of the banks started offering financial childcare stipends to be able to support their working parents. And so as they learned about one business doing it, others started doing it. So there's a real opportunity for what we like to call camaraderie and competition that can occur between Best Place for Working Parents businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. We're so happy to help connect businesses who are all working towards a common goal, as well as connect you to whatever state or federal resources might be available, and other information that we can get from other partners and other communities who have, they're a step ahead. I believe that we are part of the second cohort. Is that right, Sadie?
That's correct. Yes.
So there's a handful of folks who have already done this. Might be able to give us a few pointers. Help us identify where the growing pains might come in and get out in front of those issues. So we're absolutely happy to help and be a resource to all of our employers in the area.
Yes, and I would say in partnership with you all, of course, nationally at the Best Place for Working Parents as well, we want to be that resource for you as well. Obviously working in tandem with your local leaders, but happy to connect you and provide additional resources in this space as well. Kyle, I don't know if there's other questions that maybe the audience has, but I'd love, even if some of the attendees want to share what's worked especially well, or some of the innovative practices that they're doing that maybe they want to share with others.
So we don't have any more questions in the hopper right now, but I will say that I took the self-assessment as an employer, and when I got finished, we qualified. It felt like we maybe barely qualified as a Best Place for Working Parents, but when I got done, I had to get out the employee handbook and really go back through and say, why aren't we doing this? This makes so much sense. It's super easy, but I couldn't find any policies in our current employee handbook. It definitely needs to be updated, but a lot of really simple things that we could implement, even just differentiating between a regular leave and a parental leave, but making sure that we have that language added in. So there's a lot of good things as you're walking through that assessment. And honestly, I think we were one question away from not qualifying. What if we have a business who takes the assessment, they don't qualify, and they go to work and start implementing some of these things? Can they then redo the assessment so that they can qualify as the Best Place for Working Parents?
Yes, and we love that. So that is absolutely one of the great things is you can walk through, you can see where you qualify, where you don't. And if you don't qualify as the Best Place for Working Parents, the first time you take it, we encourage you, just like you said, Kyle, go back to your HR manual, go back to your employees, go back to your leadership and see what can we do to change some policies on the ground so that we can qualify. So a business can take the assessment as many times they like throughout the year. So you can take it now, you don't qualify, you change some things, take it in 3 months, get that designation. The other thing is that I didn't mention is that how you stack up against the businesses is live and responsive. So as more and more companies come into the Best Place for Working Parents Network, you're being compared against a larger group of businesses and networks. So right now, as I mentioned, we have about 600 businesses who are designated. We have about 1,000 businesses who've taken the assessment. I would easily expect that number to double this year. And so you may go in and see like, oh, gosh, now we still qualify as the Best Place for Working Parents business, but maybe there's more we can do. Now that more are in the network, we're able to see actually we're doing better. So it's live, it's responsive, and it's really used to inform, not just HR and not just your leadership, but hopefully an opportunity to recognize what businesses are doing well, and then collectively to really show, potential businesses why they should come to Walla Walla and set up shop.
Excellent. Okay, so we don't have any other comments or questions currently, either on Facebook or in the chat. So if you want to share some of those examples of other businesses that you've seen, I think that would definitely be helpful. And we should keep in mind too that this webinar is going to be available to watch in the future. We'll continue to refer back to it to help people understand what this effort is all about. So you may be speaking to people months down the road in using these examples.
Great. Yeah, so some of the innovative things we've seen, certainly there's I would say not on the innovative side, there's the traditional bring your child to work day, which kind of fits into that culture piece and family friendly. My apologies, I just had my 2-year-old walk in, so just waving to her in light of family friendly. Hi, Kayla. So, you know, there's the bring your child to work day, of course, some of those friendly things. I think other things we saw happening during COVID that we're seeing continue to come through is technology stipends for parents whose children maybe had to do remote learning, but then are still using technology in the home. So technology student stipends. I think one of the things we saw come out of we've done some learning roundtables. One of the things we saw come out of there was, in addition to technology stipends, is tutoring stipends for working parents and the ability to offer that. Additionally, I think one big area where companies are leaning in is mental health. And so when they go through and they do the assessment, is they're finding, you know, okay, well, you know, maybe we are being able to offer healthcare, but we're not, you know, we're not thinking about mental health for our employees, or maybe we're offering healthcare, but we're not necessarily offering it or making it available for our employees' families. So those are some of the places we've seen businesses really start to come forward. I think another area we've seen businesses be responsive is just to acknowledge that, you know, the workplace has an opportunity to offer flexibility, especially if you want to attract that top talent, and in particular in thinking about getting women back to work. So if you have certainly like somebody returning from parental leave, the opportunity to ease them back to the workplace. And that, you know, one way to do that is even to think about limited hours that may be compensated differently. So that way you're setting normal expectations between managers and their employees. And we've seen some businesses, as a result of taking the assessment and thinking about parental leave, broaden that conversation internally to say, you know, how can we think more holistically to say not just, you know, that they get these 6 weeks or 12 weeks, but what does it look like upon their return, and what does it look like upon their exit, and how are we helping to put in place ways for the work to continue forward and then jump back in. So one is we had a local bank, Bank of Texas, who was, you know, looking to hire, and really as they were intentionally focused on ensuring to get more women in the workforce, what they did is really create more flexible opportunities, some part-time, some closer to full-time, but not full-time, that could be put in place for a few years with the understanding that, you know, in 3 to 5 years, they wanted to have that employee at full-time, but understanding that, you know, where they were at that juncture of parenting really couldn't be a full-time employee, but that with, you know, with a little bit of leeway that employee was going to stay on board. I think another thing that we've seen, I mentioned the on-site childcare. We're also seeing a lot more businesses dive in at Kyla, as we discussed earlier, with the dependent care FSA, and really stepping back and going back to your benefits team and saying, you know, how do we start to put this in place? There's also the opportunity that employers themselves can contribute to that plan. So there's lots of ways to make it work. One of the things that also, you know, different groups are looking at locally in various places across the country is thinking about some of the employer childcare tax credits, that if employers are not going to be able to invest in on-site childcare or even vouchers, one thing they can do is invest in their local resource and referral organizations who are supporting parents locating the childcare at that age. Let's see, we have, oh, there, good. You put in the National Summit. So yes, follow that link. Also, I'll just put in This is the code to be able to register Summit 2022 at no cost. But if you have any trouble, you are welcome to email us and we'll get you registered at, on our behalf. So any other thoughts or questions?
Well, yeah, another thing to consider, we had a couple of childcare providers shut down during COVID. And it seems like permanently we've lost a number of seats. We know that our area of Washington, and I believe this is Columbia and Walla Walla counties, I haven't seen a designation for Umatilla County in Oregon, but we're now classified as a child care desert, meaning that the number of children and eligible people we have to treat in child care greatly outweighs the number of seats that are available from our local providers. And this is a great concern. So there is a group of folks who have been working for many years to encourage growth in that industry. It is a very difficult industry for entrepreneurs to jump into. If it's something that you're interested in doing, you'll learn very quickly that there are a lot of regulations, a lot of red tape that you have to go through in order to either open a facility or provide these kinds of services in your home. So this has been a priority for the chamber legislatively for many years, working with our state government to find a way to fast track child care facilities who want to expand, or new ones that want to open up, or people who just want to make their home available to provide in-home care for friends and family members or neighbors. It's an incredibly complex issue, and we know that we just can't have centers opening up so quickly. They have, those regulations to go through, and a lot of it is about the child safety. So making sure that we're providing a safe place where the child's well-being is put first and foremost is critical. And because of that, it takes a long time for us to effect any kind of change in public policy, even though a lot of us have been working at it for a long time. We feel that the best place for working parents is a way that we don't have to wait for the wheels of government to provide us a solution. That as employers here locally, we can take ownership of this problem, and we together can implement some solutions that will allow folks to get back to work or stay in the workforce. So we're really excited about this partnership and providing the tools and resources that you need to keep your employees happy and keep that wonderful feeling that Walla Walla has as being a family-friendly place. So we just really want people to be proactive and facilitating the access to those tools is really critical for us, and that's why we're working on this issue.
Absolutely. And Kyle, if I can just jump in for a second there, thank you so much and y'all's commitment to childcare. One of the things I've mentioned earlier is the federal employer child care tax credit, which some people may or may not be familiar with. I think a lot of people who are familiar with it understand it to be limited to on-site childcare, which is not the case. So with the employer child care tax credit, there's really multiple ways that employers can support their childcare community and their working parents. So yes, you can put on-site childcare in place. As you mentioned, Kyle, there's licensing and regulations and all sorts of stuff that comes with that. Many businesses have concerns about liability. A workaround to that many will do is to hire a third-party company to come in and run the childcare business, and sometimes they'll lease the space back to that. So sometimes people will go with larger chains like a Bright Horizons or something like that, or sometimes they may go with a small local organization that is known for quality childcare in their region. So both of those are of course options, but there's other ways that you can take advantage of the child care tax credit as well. One of those is you can contract slots from childcare in your in your region or in your area, whether that be home-based or center-based. So you're actually able to say, yes, if you put your child here, we'll pay for that, or we'll subsidize part of that. And then you're able to request, oh, sorry, that was on my screen here. You're able to also put that towards the employer child care tax credit. So that would be, you can have it at a third-party site, you can have it on-site. Another one is any efforts that you put in place to help your employees access childcare. So whether that be time spent searching for childcare, supporting some of the local networks, Kyle, that you mentioned that you guys are already working with. Of course, they're doing the really hard work of trying to create new spots, and so supporting those efforts also can go into the employer child care tax credit. And then also, if you have on-site, or if you're supporting your employees to send their children off-site, you're also able to support those child care centers, whether it be on-site or off-site, through training and quality regulation and improvement. So those are a couple ways that you have the opportunity to plug in and support the child care community, so that they can have the opportunity to both stabilize, which we know is so critical, but then hopefully move towards growth.
Okay, and as always, the Chamber will continue working on this issue. We should probably shout out to the Early Learning Coalition, the Downtown Foundation, the Blue Mountain Community Foundation. We have some really great partners who are working hard on this, and it ties into a much larger group of employers who actively participate here, as well as our local government agencies too. So we're really proud of the work that we've done. This will continue to be a top priority for us. Really emphasized by COVID, and just how difficult it is in the economic recovery, and the role that childcare plays in that, as well as making sure that our youngest children are being educated and well cared for. We know that they're going to be entering school soon. We want them to be well prepared. And when they leave the education system, we want them to be here and part of our workforce. So it's really an all-encompassing issue, very critical for us here as a community and as a base of employers.
Wonderful. And Kyle, if I may, I'd love to just walk through and thank all of the Walla Walla Best Place for Working Parents businesses.
Yeah,
so we have Marvel Marketeers, we have BNSF Railway, Total Comfort Solutions, Nelson Construction Corps, March of Dimes, the Downtown Walla Walla Foundation, which also, as you mentioned, helped to bring Best Place for Working Parents to Walla Walla, the Walla Walla County, the Community Council, the Walla Walla Valley Wine, the Health Center, Walla Walla, Ingenieux, thank you. The City of Walla Walla, of course, the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce, congratulations to you all. The United States Army Corps of Engineers, Bloom Communications, CLA, Sherwood Trust, McKellen Consulting, all designated Walla Walla businesses. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because that's a very diverse group. There were some really small for-profit businesses. We had some large governmental agencies, people in construction, accounting, business professional services. So really a great mix of people there. And I think it shows that this is an issue for everyone that affects every single industry.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if people want more information, should we direct them to your website?
Yes,